Hey, folks, we are back. This is day two, the Wellness Weekend, and we are here Saturday at 11 a.m. This is our keynote speaker. It gives me a great pleasure and an honor to introduce to you my friend, my colleague, mentor, and the only MD I recommend to my family, Dr. Dennis Courtney. He's here today to do something that you probably thought wasn't possible. Usually when you lose your eyesight, it's gone. No, this guy's going to show you how to regain it. So without any further ado, Dr. Dennis Courtney.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, folks. Thanks for coming around and maybe picked up a few interesting little tidbits to leave you with and to think about as time moves on. Of course, in an office such as mine, it's safe to say that every single thing that I do is something I was never taught in medical school. Pretty much abandoned most of that, to be honest with you. But these modalities are very forceful and quite possibly able to completely reverse medical conditions. We won't get anywhere near get through a list of them today, but I think if you, I require all of my patients to have a PCP, because if there's one thing I cannot be for you, is your PCP, because I'm trained as an anesthesiologist, and an anesthesiologist is not allowed to be a PCP. Insurance companies don't recognize anesthesia as being able to treat as a PCP. What I end up having is a whole bunch of patients with a PCP that they don't go to. They prefer not to go there. They go there when they have to go there for some specific reason, but they prefer to stay away from the PCP because they've learned that what they're going to be given is a drug, and that story can be repeated countless numbers of times. The drug will never, I repeat, will never be able to correct the condition. Let's get that one thing straight. So there's never been a medicine ever invented that it was designed and will fix any problem. There has never been one. And that even includes antibiotics, which you might think, well, gosh, I know that really fixed the problem. Well, no, it didn't, because all it could do was to help your immune system pick up and do the real job. So if you have a condition, something called AIDS, where you don't have an immune system, an infection that a newborn baby would get rid of in 48 hours, the AIDS patient dies from it because he has no immune system. So I do things that are different, and there are more of me than just me. There are other doctors across this country that do a fine job with these other modalities. There are organizations that train us. You should keep in mind there's the American Academy for the Advancement of Medicine, and that is one place that's a reservoir of doctors anywhere in the country. You dial up that website, you put in your zip code, and they tell you where your nearest doctor is. I think in Western Pennsylvania, there are 4 doctors such as I. Only 4. And they're spread out all over the place. They all do a fine job because they're all using techniques and treatments far outside of the scope of their medical degree, because they learned, as I did, that probably is the best thing to do. So, treating diseases differently is the common thread among all these, we say, alternative medicine doctors. We say integrative medical doctors. Other people use terms holistic doctors. And many in the profession, the medical profession, call them voodoo doctors. and I've been called that many times. But I understand the ignorance from which that comes from, and I certainly don't let it bother me at all. But even though each treatment with each patient is going to be something that the conventional medicine group does not do, and that other doctors can do, it's always nice to talk about a treatment that there is no other doctor in the entire for sure, in the United States. And I hasten to say, but I'm going to say it, probably in the world, other than me, that does this treatment. So when I have a chance to speak in front of a group, I don't have to think about too much about what I want to talk about, because it's the one treatment that makes me extremely unique. And although I'm not the original inventor of this treatment, it all has to do with the restoration of vision. Eye problems are pretty much age-related, although we do have some younger people that do develop serious eye problems. But I look at the eye as having three chambers. There's this anterior chamber that pretty much is comprised by the cornea alone, okay? And when it comes to corneal issues, the best people to handle those are the optometrists through their refraction by either using lenses in the form of glasses or lenses in the form of contacts, and they're able to really get some pretty sharp vision. And you've all visited them, and they've helped you tremendously. Then there's this middle chamber, and the mid chamber essentially has one issue going on. That's where the lens resides. And the lens, especially with age, usually can develop and will absolutely inhibit your best vision because of cataracts, which are proteinaceous materials that form on the lens. And the treatment for that is, but the ophthalmologist can remove the natural lens and put in a synthetic lens. They do a very good job at this, by the way, but this is not 100% in terms of always being a good job. So I've run into the patients who have actually said to me, worst mistake I ever made in my entire life was to get that lens changed. They're in that 3 to 5% range. Maybe it's less, maybe it's 2. But if you're in the 2, and there seems to be no fix. You know, in other surgical procedures, if something doesn't turn out right, they can always go back in and they can make repairs. Well, as I see it, and I've been watching it for all these years, there is no such repair. Once they screw that up, so all I say to you is, good. All I say to you is, if and when cataracts become an issue, you need not to be taken in such a casual approach. I say 95 or 98% is good, but it's not 100. And the consequences to a lens procedure that goes awry would leave you in a situation that just wouldn't be very tenable. So, anterior work, we got plenty of people that do work there, and they do excellent. Mid eye work, which is this lens issue, I guess at 95 and 98%, they got a pretty good chance, not being at 100. When it comes to the back of the eye, which is the retina, this is the complete land of failure. Well, it's not even failure, because the doctors who make these diagnoses actually say, Mr. Ma'am, so-and-so, you have this particular disease. By the way, there is no cure for the disease. We will not be able to intervene and improve you one bit. we can't slow this disease down. It may speed up. If it does, we're helpless. All we can do is monitor you as you progress downward. Nobody comes back upward. They all go downward. You know the names of some of these, and I'll have a slide that mentions them. That just a couple common ones would be macular degeneration, either wet or dry, glaucoma. These two probably are the ones that are in numbers, the greatest number of eye disorders that are found in the posterior chamber, and that the medical profession, these very brilliant, I mean they are brilliant doctors, ophthalmologists, and retinal specialists have no treatment at all. Nice to find out, would it not? That there is a way, however, that you can get that vision back and reverse that disease. And so the name of this particular discussion is Restore Your Lost Vision Now. By the way, as I see myself up there on the wall, I have to apologize. I look like I'm going camping instead of speaking to a group, which I would never do. But I have to own up to the fact that I had a fall on the 24th of October where I shattered my shoulder, and getting dressed is a real challenge for me. Please excuse me for my rather casual look today, but this was the best I could do. We move on. So I wrote a book. I never wrote a book before. This particular treatment literally is Pittsburgh born and Pittsburgh raised, because the guy who actually invented the treatment is one of our own. And his name is Dr. Edward Condrot. I don't know if you remember Ed. Okay? Ed has been around, and he is a Pittsburgher. He grew up here. And I met Ed in 1998 when Ed came to me and said, Dr. Courtney, look, I'm a ophthalmologist, and I sure would like if you would take the time to teach me what you do with these alternative treatments. And so a little unwritten rule that maybe you don't know is there is no school that you go to learn what I've learned. The only way that you begin to get a hold of those skills is that someone mentors you. Someone who's been doing these treatments for many years takes you under their wing and then passes that information on to you. But there's a payback clause in that, which is this. If I am ever approached by a doctor who would like to learn what I know, I am obligated to teach him. And so that's how Edward and I got started back in 1998. Taught him everything I could about what we do, the modalities that we use. That's a common word, by the way, modalities. And as an anesthesiologist using these modalities, I never really paid much attention to the eye. It just didn't seem right for me. But of course, Dr. Edward Condrot was an ophthalmologist, and he took what he was trained by me to use, and he made it applicable to the eye, and this is the treatment that emerged. He put this program together. He moved to Phoenix where he refined it, and then he took it on the road, and he took it all over the country. He'd pull into a place in Pittsburgh. His favorite place was the Marriott out by the airport. Patients would come in from all over the world to spend 3 days doing the Ed Condrot 3-day program to restore your lost vision. He would tell me, hey, Dr. Courtney, why don't you close your practice down and come on out, and you can do all the treatments, because after all, you taught me the treatments anyway, and I'll go back in the back and I'll play eye doctor and do all the evaluations and the assessments. So that's what I did. I was out at that Marriott, and on Monday morning, boy, what a group I was facing. These people were extremely unhappy. They were very depressed. You could see that they were fearful of losing their vision completely, and they were in various stages of these diseases, like the glaucoma and the MACD that I had already mentioned. And so on Monday morning, that look was one that I expected over time because I did these many programs many times. But Ed had used to use a phrase, and he said that in his literature that 85 to 90% of those who participate in a 3-day program will have a substantial improvement in their vision in 3 days. Keeping in mind that there is no treatment in the conventional medical world, that is a mind-blowing statement. It seems like it's a scam. I mean, how can that be true? And of course, if you ask any of your conventional medical doctors, they'll confirm that's absolutely a scam. You can't pay attention to that. That's not true. Now, they wouldn't know if it were or were not. They just don't know anything about it. But that's an amazing thing to be able to tell people. So naturally, on Wednesday, I was real interested on what was going to happen because at about 2 o'clock, after doing those treatments on those people for 3 days, at 2 o'clock, we rolled up the carpet and everybody got reassessed. And now all of a sudden, what was a funeral parlor turned into the gayest, most fun group of people, smiling from ear to ear, hugging one another because they had it actually proven to them how much improvement they made in a disease for which there is no treatment in the conventional medical world. And so it even surprised the heck out of me. But with each advancing meeting at Marriott, it became more and more and more really fun to meet these people on Monday, knowing full well that on Wednesday, this is going to be a completely different story. So we owe Dr. Kondrat a great debt. What happened out of that relationship is that Dr. Kondrat had an office in Florida, and he had me come down and take over doing the 3-day program. He had hobbies, he sailed, he went everywhere. I did the programs, and I got very, very good at these programs, but I'm a little ahead of myself because while doing the programs in Pittsburgh, I saw patients who left me with smiles, and then 6 months later and 1 year later, because they could get a free evaluation with Dr. Kondrat, when I met them again, there they were with the blank stare on their face. They were depressed. They were lost. And I couldn't, and many of them would tell me, I don't even do that stuff anymore. I'm going, why not? Because when you left us, we told you that you needed to do certain treatments every day at home. And so it was then I figured out the problem. And the only way to be completely honest about this is to say, concerning Dr. Kondrat, brilliant physician, brilliant. But he can't teach for nothing. And so what happened was, on Wednesday, everybody wanted to hug everybody. They were all elated because they just had proven to them how much better their vision was, and it was substantially improved. But when they left, that enthusiasm left them. Because when they got back home, as I found out later on, if you don't know how this stuff works, you lose your enthusiasm. You can't explain. You see the machines, you remember the modalities, but you don't know how they work because it was never taught to you, at least correctly. So here am I, If you all know me, my first profession is I'm a high school teacher. Can't you tell? And so if there's anything I have a knack for, it's certainly not medicine. I had to scrap and fight and do everything that just about every other medical student had to do to be able to learn what needs to be learned in order to become a doctor. But God-given is this ability to teach. And I can teach anybody anything. I don't care how deep the concept, I'll get it across. A book needed to be written. There's the book. I wrote it. I started in January, right after the holidays one year, and I didn't stop writing until April. And that is the full text of how one of these programs works. So at least there is now a manual. Ed, for some reason, and I think it was on purpose, Ed wrote a book. Ed's book was called The 10I Essentials, and it made no even any mere reference to what actually went on in a 3-day course. It was like he didn't want to tell you, and he wasn't telling you. So the mistake was to name anything the 10. Nobody wants to learn 10 of anything. But if you notice, this is a 3-step program. Something is very soothing about the number 3. The number 3 isn't going to challenge anybody. And if you were walking out of Barnes & Noble and Ed's book was laying there, the 10I Essentials, and my book was laying there, the 3-step program to restore your vision, which book are you going to buy? Well, that's why this has become the success it has. So there's a Courtney 3-step, 3-day program that I say, thank you, Ed, for having all this right. The man is a brilliant physician, but it can't work unless it can be taught. And I meet people on Mondays, and there's barely 60 watts shine in the back of their eye. I mean, it's just the light's not on. And I watch, and that light better turn on, and it does turn on. And once it's lit, it's never going out. So in the conventional medical community, phrases like nothing can be done, you got to live with your poor vision, this is the explanation that very intelligent ophthalmologists are telling patients. And I don't know how good you would feel if you were told you're going blind, and you are, and that nothing can be done about it. Get used, just live with your poor vision. These are the trite phrases that the conventional medical community has to mention. This page we put in there, we'll call that the I Love Me page. The only thing I probably want to mention is that I did a radio show here in Pittsburgh, 23 years. I was on the radio 3 days a week. I was pretty much a well-known entity, and what a great thing that was, because if there was a book written, I got the author on my show, and I introduced him to Pittsburgh. If there was a treatment that was invented, I got the founder on my show, and I introduced it to Pittsburgh. What a vantage point to have. I saw the treatments come by me. I knew which one would be applicable to come into my office, and they are in my office today, starting from those rudimentary beginnings. So there's Courtney. I keep saying 3-step program. Let's examine that. Okay, so let's examine it. The word nothing can be done, which is the battle cry of the conventional medical ophthalmologist, is a fallacy. Something can be done. There just are limits to this conventional treatment. Now, here's the key reason why all these treatments are destined to fail. Conventional medicine is an effort. We are taught in medical school to take on a disease and to kill it, choke it, stomp on it, literally crush it, And none of those things will make a dent, will even make a dent on a disease. The best we can do, as you so well know, you have a complaint, something bothers you, you go to your doctor, and he sits back and he tries to figure out, to be honest, how to shut you up. Can't have you complaining. And so he takes a guess. How do I alleviate that person from the poor symptoms that she's suffering from? And once he guesses right, you as a patient think he is the reincarnation of the Messiah, when in actuality, what he has just done, I think, is criminal. Why? Because that disease was talking to you. It made you miserable, and you complained. He, trying to make you feel good, quashed the only sign of your disease. He did it well and pushed the disease under the surface, only at some day in the future to raise its ugly head again. Only the next time, we are now in a position where that symptom is not only a symptom, it is usually a disease very advanced and normally are part of your issues of mortality. So that simple symptom, wouldn't it have been better to correct it, correct the problem, and have the symptom go away because the problem had been dealt with? Not this reversal thing that we're taught in our medical schools. So you can't combat a disease and win by trying to take it on. In the world of integrative medicine, this is a whole different approach. Because in our medicine, where these few doctors that I say exist around the area in the country operate, all of our efforts are used to reestablish health, which is the complete opposite of trying to kill a disease. We are never taught a single thing about how to reestablish health in medical school. Things like nutrition, and if you're here, you know, and I think you know that you know more about nutrition than your doctor does. You're embarrassed to talk to your doctor about these supplements that you take because you know doggone well it would insult him because he couldn't have a conversation with you about them. He just don't know because he's never had any training in it. So we are trained in my world of the integrative medicine to reestablish the health. And you can beat a disease by reestablishing that health, considering a paradigm shift. These are the bad boys. These are the retinal diseases that are going to make you go. You are going blind with any one of these diseases. I hope no one in the audience has them, but if you do, you should really keep an ear open to me today. But in your families, you have family members that are suffering from these diseases, and they're being told nothing can be done. So what will you do? You're going to keep quiet, keep silent? Because I think your loved one is going to say, oh, you're crazy. My doctor, no. And so you can weigh in how insistent you're going to be, but nonetheless, depending on how close that family member is and how much you care for them, you be more insistent. Because as soon as I can get my hands on them, the better off we're going to be. So there they all are. But the MACD, wet or dry glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, all those other ones, a little more rare, but they all lead to blindness, and in many cases, total blindness. So that smooth approach where the number 3 is very soothing. These are the 3 steps. So let's briefly talk about them In toto, they are number one, correct all deficiencies. Number two, remove all toxicities. And number three, optimize perfusion. You do those three things, and in 3 days, oh my goodness, do we have some tremendous turnarounds just in those 3 days? And remember, these people are going to be going home with all the equipment that they needed to keep this up and be able to improve their vision even more. So the step one of correcting deficiencies, look, your diet is what your diet is. And it's been this way since you've been a child. And it's been determined by your ethnicity, your socioeconomic background, your geography. Whatever was missing in your diet in the way of nutrients, they're probably still missing today. But every single one of these nutrients plays a role in the metabolic processes in your body. And if you need a certain mineral, and you only need a molecule of it, you better have it, because if you don't, while you're young, you get these little workarounds, okay? But let's just say this, at some point, you lose that ability, and if you don't have that nutrient, the tissue that requires it won't function properly. You start adding on to that one, and maybe you have 5 nutrients, maybe you have 10, whatever. That all compounds the situation. So correcting all deficiencies, I don't care how old you are. We need to bring all these nutrient levels and all these minerals up to their optimal if we're expecting to have the results that you want to have. So correcting all deficiencies is step number one, and it just begins in the 3-day program. Nobody's naive enough to think that in 3 days I'm going to have any impact on this. Some things to say about your diet would be that if you have the greatest diet in the world, if you could start today, you would not be able to correct your deficiencies on diet alone. And the reason, the foods that we have now, there are no nutrients in them. They've been farmed out. I can remember a phrase, I never forgot it, when I was told that it would take a bushel of apples today to equal the nutrients found in one apple of the 1950s. They look good, they taste pretty good, but there's no nutrients in them. So you can't eat your way to health, although there's some things you can do not messing this up. How about organic? How about that? Because the chemical issue, and boy, do I hope RFK gets in there. I think we're going to have some major contribution to RFK because I know he knows all about this, and it's going to be kept from you by the agencies that we currently have. We're going to need an RFK to do it. So you can't eat your way to health. You're going to be doing a lot of supplementation. We won't get into that now. Just to say that supplementation is how you get all the nutrients, because you cannot eat your way to health. Eating should just be enjoyable and not screwing it up. So you can mess this up if you're eating foods that are raised meats that are raised inappropriately, vegetables that are sprayed on, and all this stuff. So eating organic, I believe, is probably the best advice to do it in one word. Number 2, you are Pittsburghers, for gosh sake. You've been exposed to more pollutants because of your geography than most people anywhere else in the world, except for some minor pockets in third world countries. And so don't be telling me you don't have any toxicities. You're loaded, and your body has soaked them up like a sponge. stuff that you were exposed to when you were 10, still in there. Why? Because they become intertwined with the very tissue that you own. Once they're in, it takes yeoman effort to get them out, but you can get them out because you have tissue. If it had all its nutrients that might want to work, but because of your toxicity load, they can't work with that burden of those toxic substances, so we're going to remove them all. And by the way, that's not going to be done in 3 days. Removing heavy metals and non-heavy metals are our goal. But take a look at this number 3 here. That's a fancy way. Is optimized perfusion means bring a blood flow to the area of concern. Because I'm saying to you that with any one of these retinal diseases, you have no blood flow to your retina. Your blood vessels and the tissue is not working because it does not have a blood flow. Because even if you had a great diet and you remove toxicities, unless you get the blood flow, how do you get the nutrients into the retinal tissue? And then how would you get the waste products and these metals and other things out unless you had a blood flow to do it? So optimizing perfusion is what I consider this missing link. You know, there's a group of doctors that I first belonged to when I was in those rookie years, and then much later too. And I can remember sitting around in the evening time in a barroom atmosphere, meeting all the people who really were the trendsetters. They were the people that were the mentors. They had all the information, and they were nice enough to pass that on. So I'm listening to them speak, and every single one of them was right on target when it came to nutrition and supplementation. Those doctors, unlike your doctors, absolutely could have a conversation, and you could learn from them because they were that knowledgeable. So I felt that was music to my ears. Number 2, oh my goodness, removing toxicities. The people that wrote the books were in that crowd, and certainly were able to pass on to me the gist and the actual way that you do get rid of it. So I'm hearing about number 1 a lot. I'm hearing about number 2 a lot. I'm waiting. I don't hear anything about number 3. So I'm timid at first, maybe. I am timid. I'm in front of these great people. But as I get more comfortable in my hand, and I said, hey, guys, you're doing a hell of a job out there with this nutrition and then how to get rid of these waste products and toxic substances. But what about number 3? And they looked at me and they said, what do you mean number 3? I went, wait a minute. You're the best we have. What do you mean asking me about number 3? You mean like you don't know there's a number 3? And they really didn't. They responded, no. Come on, tell us. You opened your mouth. What's number 3? Optimizing perfusion is not only number 3. It's the most important of them all. And I'm in front of the best minds of the alternative realm, and they never put that together. And it was easy for them to see what an error they had made. And so they jumped on board. It raised my status in the community. I now was a very much well considered to be on par member of the group, having actually taught them a thing or two. but this optimized perfusion is the key. What you're looking at right here is a diagram, and essentially as you're looking at it, on the left side is an arteriole. That's the smallest of arteries. And notice as it comes into the cells, and those cells are those circular things, we're now at a microscopic level. And these little roundabouts of these cells are capillaries, where only one blood cell has the room to get through it, and that's where the exchange of gases and materials takes place. So if you want to bring nutrients to the area, you have to really increase the number of capillaries, and you can do it. And the more that you do create, the greater the gush of blood going to the area, and now we're talking business. And on the right side of that diagram, as you're looking at it, is the venous side, because when you metabolize food, for instance, or anything else, you leave waste products, plus all the toxic substances that you acquired over a lifetime, and they have to be removed. And so ultimately, going out the right side is a venule. And so that, in its microcosm form, is what we work on when we intend to optimize perfusion. And if I want blood flow to your eye, I get that blood flow in gushes in a nanosecond. With the modalities I have, the moment we use a lot of, I guess the most important device that we use is something called FSM, which stands for frequency specific microcurrent, because every single thing in this world, every single part of you has its own unique and signature frequency. Everything shakes, and it shakes and resonates at a specific frequency only unique to that. And every part of you is made up of components, each and every one of which has its own frequency. And the frequency of the retina, I happen to know, is 37 hertz. Powerful information, right? Because once I've set the program at 37 hertz, then if I want blood flow, I'm going to get it the moment you hit that switch. And in 3 days, I'm going to have a lot of healthier tissue occur within those 3 days. And that's why I can say 85 to 90% of those people who attend a 3-day program will leave with a substantial improvement in their vision, not because I even made a dent in their nutritional deficiencies. I will not have made a dent. Not because I've unloaded a burden of their toxicities, because I will not have done that. This is going to take time. It's going to take over a year probably. But what I am going to do is in an instant, I am going to perfuse tissue that's essentially dead. And I'm going to bring it back to life, and so much life is going to be reinfused into that retinal tissue that on day 3, when you go back to be reevaluated, the news won't be a surprise to me, but I get to watch you smile and hug and do all those nice things that I enjoy. And then I know 6 months later, because we've sat around now for 3 days, I have taught you everything you need to know and that you won't forget. Can you imagine? Well, I sure can, and I demand it, because I look to see those light bulbs go off in the back of your eye. And they better be 100 watts by the time the 3rd day comes around. No 60 watts are going to work for me. And between the actual patient, and many times we encourage the family to participate. So I'm teaching everybody in the family. Now, occasionally, just as an aside, I have to install bleachers, because, I get family members coming. And when I get that big load of family members, I know what's going on, because once they sit down in front of me, I'll identify the patient, and then I know in that crowd, there's one of them, daughter, niece, who does not like me at all, who feels I'm running a scam, and he or she is only there to protect their loved one while all the others in the bleachers are cheering her on. So I always love to have he or she in that group, because I sure like to see that on day 3, they walk out shaking their head just like everybody else is shaking their head, because you can't go up against logic with fantasy material, which the conventional medical community has, and win. Not against me, you can't. So this is an overview of a 3-day program. Essentially, there are 8, and it's in blue, all that stuff in blue. There are 8 modalities that are used around the clock during a 3-day program. Now, many of them you see letters like FSM, PEMF. There's really, this is not the setting to talk about every one of those 8 things. I just wanted you to know there are 8 of them, and they are continually used during a 3-day program. By the time you go home, you're doing every single one of these things at home. And remember how they used to come from all over the world to be treated by Dr. Kondrat. I have to tell you, they now come from all over the world to be treated. But I have had them from the furthest one that ever came to be treated by me was from Australia. And I know that because she told me there are 17 time zones that you have to cross from Australia to the East Coast. 17. But she came. Why did she come? Well, she came because, excuse me for that, she was going blind. And she was in Australia. And she was being told, just like you'd be told here, nothing can be done, which is a fallacy. And now there's this thing called the internet, and eventually, oh, you gotta cut it out tonight. Let's hope that's it. So, those modalities are what we do over the 3 days, and they ensure that that we're going to be able to accomplish the goal and the objective. So, I want you to have, yeah. So, at the end of this 3-day period, whenever everybody's hugging everybody, there have been some of these that I was able to interview. So I figure you might as well have an opportunity to see some pretty happy people that 3 days prior were not too happy at all.
Near the occipital nerve, and it ended up.
There you go.
Hello, I'm Lanny Green, and this is Mel Green, my wife. I have had a stroke, and that was near the occipital nerve, and it ended up taking half of my vision off of each eye, and also I have glaucoma. And I have really not had a lot of hope until I experienced this program here that I read about, and I'm so fortunate that I joined, decided to come and experience a great improvement in my eyesight. It's been amazing, definitely measurable, both by the charts and the equipment, testing in the beginning and in the end, but also my own personal experience. I felt the difference, and I feel the difference, and of course I can see the difference. The clarity is amazing. The small letters that I can read and see now is a marked improvement. I'm really encouraged. I am very glad I participated and joined the program.
I'm Melba Green, and I'm Lanny's wife, and I was ready for him to do anything that would bring hope into his life, because since his stroke he had been very depressed and not hopeful because of the information that all the specialists, MDs, optometrists, and ophthalmologists gave him. He found this program and started reading about Dr. Condroit's methods, and we were very impressed by that, if a little doubtful that it might be true. When we got here, the staff was cheerful and welcoming. They were also energetic and organized. And the results of the 3-day intensive therapy have been astounding. Yesterday, when we walked out of here after reviewing the test, my husband's face was aglow. I hope you can experience the same thing.
I'm Sandy Paulson, and I was diagnosed with cataracts. I came to the clinic, and to be honest, from the first day to the last, it was like getting new windshield wiper blades. You know when you drive your car and you turn on the wipers, and they just don't clear away all the muck, especially when you're in some dusty, dirty place, and it goes across the windshield, but it doesn't clear off the dirt. So I've been looking through that for the last 6 or 8 months, and on the last day, I mean, it was just like I got new blades in my wipers, and it's so much better. I was out taking pictures this morning, and I can see so much clearer. So, Courtney.
Dr. Courtney, a 3-day program, and coming down with severe glaucoma and severe in both eyes, and right eye was even worse than the left, and could not hardly read any lines on the vision chart. And after taking the 3-day program, I was privileged to say that I could see down to the 5th line and read it, and just amazing results. And even my left eye, the vision improved. I could get down into 2020, and even said maybe I read some in the 2010. Outstanding program that made a believer out of me, that anybody could gain this much with glaucoma, where I've been told that no vision would ever be gained back. And it was just a great experience, and the staff and everyone was so wonderful. We just appreciate everything that Dr. Courtney done and the staff, and this program is truly amazing. You need to try it, and man, it's overwhelming what it'll do for you.
And I actually was taken aback by such a response. But nonetheless, I'll never forget him. And to be able to jump that many lines on an eye chart, normally it's 4 or 5 lines. I mean, I'm just used. This is what happens. This is what I'm used to saying. So I've now shared with you the you could, if you ever do encounter, or if you in particular have an eye issue, you'll want to set up a free consultation with me by calling the office, and I'll make a special time set aside, and we can talk about your particular issue, and I could just tell you that the 3-day, there is no substitute for it. And if you're going blind, why would you not do this? Get a free copy of the book. And there's that 85 to 90% that it amazes me. Ed got those kinds of results. We get those kinds of results. But we're the only, he invented it. Then he had me take it over. And, but we're it. We know of no other person anywhere. Yes, ma'am. So remember a cornea problem. Yeah, it's not me. I do my best work when where nobody can work at all. So the anterior chamber. No, this is not a program that you should consider coming to me for a corneal issue. Now, when it comes to cataracts, I have a pretty good percentage. The one girl who said she had mud on her wipers, and it was like she got a new set of wipers, that younger lady, was extremely grateful. We're not at 85 to 90%. It's more like 60-40, but nonetheless, to be able to avoid the surgery, and cataracts are really common, this may be something that someone will want to consider. But if you have a retinal disease, and you show all those names, this is the only program in the world that will be able to do that. Glaucoma is the #1 cause of total black blindness. No, it's a retinal. No, you're gonna have poor vision because of the irregularity. Maybe there's abrasions, other things, but you're not going blind. Every single person that I meet, we have to improve the perfusion of that organ. I use it on every issue. Okay? But with the eye, I had to mention it. Joe, thank you very much.
Doc,
I think
you hit it right on the
I
nose.
did it.
1 hour.
I did it.
That's great. And folks, Doc is going to stick around. We're going to get another speaker on. If you have any more questions for him, you can grab him out here. Maybe you can buy him some lunch or something. You know.
I don't have any books here. I came really lightly burdened. They are available in my office. By the way, we do have it on Amazon. And the thing with Amazon is that it's downloaded, and it allows, some people are so vision poor, they can't read the font in the book. But if they get the downloaded version on Amazon, they can blow that up on their computer and read anything. Absolutely. I'm on Parkway West, Campbell's Run Road. Just below Giant Eagle. Don't go to the top of the hill. I'm on the bottom. All right.
Do you have any cards, business cards with you or anything?
I came in.
No, okay.
All right.
We have his contact info, so anybody that needs it, you see me after, I'll make sure you get it. Courtney Medical, we have it.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
attention.
Doc.